Welcome back to the County News Podcast. My name is Nicole Weissman, and this is our series from the National Center for Public Lands Counties. This series of interviews took place at NACo's 2024 Western Interstate Region Conference, with the goal of shedding light on the experiences of public lands counties and the officials who lead them. In this, our fourth episode in the series, my co-host Charlie Ban interviews Beaver County, Utah Commissioner Tammy Pearson.
I'm Tammy Pearson. I'm the County Commissioner in Beaver County, Utah.
All right, what do you listen to on a long solo drive?
Oh, country music.
All right. Tell me about Beaver County's public lands makeup. How much is Forest Service? How much is BLM? What are you looking at there?
So Beaver County has 87% public land. And the breakdown on that is 77% is split between BLM and Forest Service, and then 10% is state trust land. Okay. So we only have 13% of private land in our county, which is pretty, I mean, it's good irrigated land, and that's where our communities are. But the majority of Beaver County and a lot of our, our best places are Forest Service and BLM. We have a lot of livestock grazing, public lands livestock grazing. We have some not high quality timber, but we have a ski resort. We have a lot of high value properties on the mountain on BLM, on Forest Service in the timber industry areas and the forest areas. So we worry a lot about fires. We worry a lot about that wildlife urban interface and keeping that fire boundary safe. Most of our public land on the BLM side is the western side. It's high desert country. We have a lot of mining. We have mostly, recreation, livestock grazing, mineral exploration, different things like that. A lot of recreation stuff.
We've kind of addressed it already, but what are some of the positive and negative aspects of having public lands be such a part of your county, and how does that shape your county's culture?
Well, culturally, a huge agricultural base. So what the private property is irrigated, and so there's a lot of farming and that kind of industries that support farming. But there are a lot of families that do the public lands grazing, and so in a really public lands county like ours, that's kind of our base. That's what sustains our families there and allows them to raise their family. What that does is it's a cheaper way to produce food, right, on public lands. And we were the #1 agricultural county in Utah because of our high production of swine. We also have a big pork producer that's there. Was there, I should say. They've downsized, and we've took a really hard economic hit on those guys downsizing, but we still export out of the county a lot of beef. There's a lot of, one of the other advantages is wild horses. So we have several wild horse herd management areas there, the HMAs they call them, and that's one of the reasons why I'm even in office, is because of the overpopulation of wild horses, and it has had a huge negative effect on our public lands, not only the water resource, the riparian areas, but a huge economic impact on the wildlife. It's displacing wildlife, and there's places, some of these HMAs that are 400 or 500% of what the appropriate management level is.
And that's, from what I understand, a lot of the BLM's budget has gone just to feeding this ballooning population of wild horses and burros.
It is, and what the problem is there's no exit strategy, right? So they've taken a few of the tools out of the toolbox, we call it. It used to be that there was a back door on horses. They gathered them, and then they used them as a protein source, and so the general public's kind of shied away from that. So instead, now we're long-term housing horses, and so 80% of the BLM's horse budget goes to feeding horses for perpetuity, like just forever. And so But if you don't get them off the range, if you don't try and keep that management level down to the appropriate level, then you're displacing wildlife, you're displacing grazing, you're actually doing permanent damage to the ecosystem and anything else that depends on that in the West.
Because they basically eat right down to the root.
They eat everything. They're kind of the dominant, what do you call that?
The apex predator.
The
basically.
apex predator.
And they're not even from. That's not even from North America.
No, they've been shipped in. I mean, it was miners and the Spanish and the farmers and ranchers and stuff that, started the herds basically, because they turned animals loose. Now they produce, and they produce. The population can double in 4 years.
So that kind of dovetails into my next question. Tell me about your public lands education, both as a private citizen and now as an elected official.
Oh, I graduated from the School of Hard Knocks, like literally. I grew up on a farm. I was my dad's only son. I was the oldest of 4 girls, so I loved the outdoor work, And then I went to Utah State, the Aggies, and agricultural thing. Had my education in ag science and worked for the extension office out of Utah State. And then when I got married, and I've been down in Beaver County for 41 years. My husband and his family have this big ranch and this giant farm, and so we've been involved in public lands, for most of my adult life. And dealing with BLM, dealing with horses, dealing with management. I didn't know anything about Forest Service until I got into the commission, right? So then I've been a commissioner now for 10 years, and now I deal with a lot of Forest Service issues, a lot of forest management issues on that kind of level, and I have absolutely loved my time in UAC, the Utah Association of Counties, and then getting involved with the Western Region and NACo, because we have a greater voice that way on a federal level and federal management, where you don't just, if you're just sitting in your own little bubble in your own little county, you don't make much of a splash. But you start reaching out in the network system, between the state and the national levels, there's a lot of good things that you can do.
That's my next question is, what stories of public land management have resonated with your congressional delegation? Obviously, you've got people who've worked in county governments now representing you, but in the past, how have you reached out with your issues to Congress?
So we've got some really good members in Congress. We're super proud right now of Celeste Malloy, who's there. She actually was our public lands attorney for the Utah Association of Counties, represented all of our counties on these kind of issues. She's worked with us really good. We've got a really good project that we've done now that I think this will be our 6th year with the Congressional Briefing Tour. So trying to keep that coordination effort with Congress and Senate, members of the Senate, is, we've invited these staffers out, and her office, which was formerly Chris Stewart's office, were really, really helpful in getting Washington, D.C. staffers. I don't believe in preaching to the choir. I believe in sharing the education that we have. And our main issue is just maintaining multiple use on public lands. I mean, that just pretty much takes care of everything, right? And so this congressional briefing that we've done, and we try to bring between 20-25 staffers, including NACo staff, that have participated, and we bring them into Salt Lake City. We take them down through and we talk about every single issue we can possibly talk about public lands management. And so working with Congress on that kind of gives you a foot in the door in DC. People know who we are. People know who I am specifically, because I'm always there. I'm always at the table. And the one of the very first things I learned, and man, I swallowed that hook, line, and sinker, is one of the old commissioners, and he wore a cowboy hat, and of course I gravitate to the cowboys. He told me, he says, Tammy, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so you need to be active, because the people that show up are they're the ones that get things done.
And obviously, as an ag county, that resonates.
It's important.
Even if you weren't at the whims of the federal government in a lot of things, just being an ag county, that has to resonate with you a lot.
Well, we're the little guys. I mean, even our state, we're the little guys. We have a population of 7,500 people. We're a fifth class county out of 6, so we're one of the smallest ones, in population. But we're the squeaky wheel too. Like we have really good relationships, and that's been my main goal, is to build relationships and build networks to get things done for my county, because we don't have the money, we don't have the population to throw around. So it's kind of pack a big stick and talk louder.
Yeah, find the right batteries for the megaphone.
Exactly.
What's the biggest public lands related news in Beaver County that's gotten the general public talking?
Well, wild horses was kind of the big thing, and that's just kind of an ongoing, because it's just such a hard, complicated issue. But probably in the last 5 or 6 years, we've been working on the shared stewardship projects on Forest Service. And I've been pretty vocal about that. And our local guys, the part that I love is, even though we differ a lot on some of the things that come out of DC, on administrations and their management policies, our hometown folks that work in these districts, both BLM and Forest Service, kind of grew up there. They're hometown kids, they understand the issues, and they got the boots on the ground mentality that we can get things done. Like we're gonna work through whatever hoops we gotta work through, but we're gonna continue to do proper management. So years ago, when we first started working on the shared stewardship funding out of DC, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, we're already doing that at home. But if we can get funding and we can ramp those projects up, that's going to be huge for our county, and it's going to be huge. Like, if we can be the poster child on how to do things right on forest management, I'm all for that. And so they came back in, the state recognized that, because I started presenting it on a state level, and they came in and did a big video, and then the Forest Service on a national level took that video, and then they spread it to all the forests, and so it just went crazy. And it's kind of old news now, because it's like 3 years old, but I presented it to NACo, actually took it to the Rural Action Caucus Committee of NACo, and everybody just loved it. Now the hometown people, they just think that's standard procedure, right? Because that's how you're supposed to do it. They don't understand that on a national level, that this is like the prime thing you should be doing and working. But they're on board, they just love it. But that's just general nature at home. Do things right. In my previous life of just being a mean old cowgirl, right? I come in guns a-blazing and, the pitchfork committee and all that, and just mad at the world because the horses aren't being taken care of, or this or that or the other. And I found out that you don't get much done when you act like that, right? And so I took a step back and I said, you treat people the way you want to be treated. So it's mutual respect, it's kindness, find the common ground and sit down. And so that's been my number one priority. And sometimes it's hard. There's some people that I don't care for, and we're never going to see eye to eye. But building some sort of a relationship so that you can find solutions to problems, that's my number one goal. And I've tried really hard. It's not always been successful, but I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and take a piece of humble pie once in a while. Sorry, I might need a drink.
Yeah.
Oh, I set it over here. If you don't mind.
No, that's.
Jump off the camera and you can cut it, edit, or whatever.
We're using very little of the video. It's just.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. What a good idea.
just like 30 seconds at most of a really good. The problem is you're giving us really good sound bites. But you were saying about the building relation, taking a step back, looking at the long term, like. There is something we can work on together. I forgot exactly where you dropped at, where we took off, but
just about building relationships.
I don't know what else should we know about being a public lands county official. I mean, I feel incredibly fortunate to have been on one of those tours, to have seen it, because I kind of compare it to years of covering WIR and public lands committees with NACo. It's kind of like going to chemistry class in high school and then I got to go to the lab and actually do the experiments
Right.
and actually see things more so than I could ever get on a half-day mobile workshop. I got to spend 3 days just seeing everything, and it was incredible.
People don't know what they don't know. And it's one thing to tell them, it's a completely different thing to show them and involve them, right? And so, I think you have to have boots on the ground to understand, like the old saying, walk in my shoes or walk in my boots, and then you'll understand. And so I think that's the key thing, building relationships, trying to get that message across. I'm not preaching to you. I just want you to show you and have you understand my perspective.
Yeah.
And you can always find common ground. And I don't care. I love the be kind,
Mm-hmm.
I may not always be kind, but I will always treat you with respect unless you punch me in the nose first.
What does Beaver County need from the federal government?
A lot of the federal government stuff that affects us is simply overreach. Like it's management from a 30,000 foot level instead of on the ground. And I think if they allowed the local people to do the things that are necessary on the ground there in a local community, because even in Utah, we have 29 counties. Every one of those counties are completely unique. Their landscape is unique. Even 2 different parts of my own county. The eastern half of the county is Forest Service. It's mountains covered with snow and timber and a ski resort. And the other side is barren desert and sand dunes. So federal management on those kind of things needs to be on the ground level, on a local level. And I think that's the best thing, creating and being allowed to create those relationships with local, federal, like the local offices of the federal agencies is the most important. And the DC needs to allow that to happen and allow that kind of management to happen.
NACo Executive Director Matt Chase interviews Garfield County, Utah Commissioner Jerry Taylor.
Well, good afternoon and welcome back to the National Association of Counties podcast, Talking Public Lands. And I'm so honored to be joined by Commissioner Jerry Taylor from Garfield County in Utah, which is just an absolutely beautiful place on earth. And just really excited to have you as a guest. So welcome.
I appreciate that. And I have to agree with you. Garfield County is a spectacular place and a beautiful place.
It is. And you have had such an amazing career outside of county government, where over 40 years with JT Steel, and you've built very large buildings, not just little buildings, but large buildings, and you've worked with companies all over the world. Like, what has your private sector experience brought to your public sector work as a county commissioner?
Oh, you learn a lot from being in the private sector. One thing you have to learn is how to survive, because being in business can be pretty rough. And so you have to be resilient, you have to work hard, get up early, stay up late, and just, do your thing, I guess.
And make sure your customers are satisfied, just like constituents.
Yes, you got to make sure that everybody's happy. My motto is simply the best. And that's what, keeps our customers coming back. We want to be the best. If you have a problem on a project, we want you to come and talk to us. And in fact, I tell my customers a lot of times, Matt, that if they have a problem, I don't care if it's 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning, I want them to call me. I want to be able to fix my own problems. I don't want them to call another fabricator to take care of my problems.
Well, there's so much parallel between that, where I would imagine in the building industry, you have ups and downs. The economy is very cyclical.
It is.
You have boom times. So when things like COVID hits or a natural disaster or one of these shocks, you probably have more resilience and more understanding of how to plan and then work your plan during a disaster.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, it was bad times, we lost our business in bad times. And that's really not, I don't believe that. I believe you lose your business in good times by the things that you do. When you're making money, it seems like a lot of times we find a way to buy a new boat, we get a new house, a new motorcycle. Sometimes we get a new girlfriend, and then when there is a downturn, you need cash. Well, you can't get rid of that new boat,
right,
that new house, any of that stuff quick enough to be able to save your business. So it's the planning in the good times that really take you through the bad times.
And I think that experience, so your Garfield County has 93% of your land we call federal public land.
Public land.
It's held by the federal government for the public. And so when you only have 7% of your land is taxable to generate revenue for a county, I'm thinking you have to be pretty smart about how the county government uses your budget.
Well,
and how do you go about that when you have such a limited tax base?
You have to remember that it's 93% federal. That's also 3% state. So we have 3% that is private. We can operate about 17 days on our own budget, on our own taxes. So we depend a lot on the federal government. Our PILT payments are like somewhere between 38 cents an acre.
Yeah.
So it's a real struggle for us.
So you mentioned PILT. So that is the Payment in Lieu of Taxes program. It's basically the federal land is not taxable. They don't pay property taxes like a homeowner or a business. So the federal government reimburses counties. As you mentioned, pennies on the dollar, but we do appreciate it. And your county gets about $1 million a year. And a place like Washington, D.C., $1 million doesn't always sound like a lot when we're talking trillions and billions of dollars. What does $1 million in the Payment in Lieu of Taxes program, and you get about $780,000 a year in the Secure Rural Schools program,
right,
which also goes to counties, not just schools,
right,
for those counties that were dependent on timber harvest on federal lands. So what does $1.5 million or $2 million do in a place like Garfield County?
Well, because we're so much public land, we have a lot. Our county has about 5,200 people, residents that live there. But we have, I don't know whether you realize it or not, but we have all of Bryce Canyon National Park. We have part of
one of my favorite places on earth.
Okay, me too. Capitol Reef, we have part of Capitol Reef in Garfield County. We have part of Canyonlands in Garfield County. We have the Escalante Grand Staircase Monument, and we have Glen Canyon Recreational Area. So we get a lot of tourism, and that can bring both good and bad. So what PILT does, it helps us with our roads, it helps us with our emergency services, it helps us, our sheriff department, and without that, we couldn't operate, because 7 million visitors brings a lot of, it's good things. It helps our local economy, but it also, we're always being called out on search and rescue or different things that have a negative impact.
And I think that is a great point, because I think so many folks assume because it's federal land, well, the federal government provides those services.
No.
And you're asking a county with 5,200 people to fund the visiting of 7 million. And in most places, counties don't get sales tax. You rely on property tax. Do you all get sales tax?
Yeah, we get sales tax and TRT tax and stuff like that.
So you do. So that helps you in your county.
We do. Our TRT tax is about 2.6 million, somewhere in there, I do believe, and that helps some. But also in that, we have, we spend it on advertising and other things like that.
The marketing.
We can only spend a small portion on, garbage removal and roads and different things.
Well, one of the reasons I was really excited to have you on this podcast, and again, this is the National Association of Counties, and we launched a new center called the National Center for Public Lands Counties, and this podcast, Talking Public Lands, you can't operate in a county like Garfield County without collaborating. When you have so many different federal parks, state parks, and when we've talked in the past, your philosophy is to get to yes. How do you keep the door open with folks even if you don't agree with them and you really have philosophical differences? Tell us about, where does that philosophy come from? Is it your private sector history, or is it just how you've always felt? Like, tell us how you came up with that philosophy.
Problems.
Is it necessity?
Well, yeah, and problems don't just go away. You have to solve a problem, and be able to do that, you've got to get everybody at the table. You've got to get everybody talking. I've often said many, many times, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Right.
And so, to me, that's a big deal. You've got to sit down with these people and talk to them, and they're really not going to understand until they actually talk to you face to face. We had a situation that you're well aware of with Tracy Stone Manning. Yeah. She was in a meeting that I was in. If I want to give a pitch for NACo, I mean, it's because of my association with NACo. I stood in front of Tracy Stone Manning, director of the BLM.
And that's the Bureau of Land Management.
Yes, we need to straighten that out too, because some people have a different meaning for BLM, Bureau of Land Management. But anyway, one of my ranchers said that he would, several months ago, would like to talk to her in person, and if we could set something up. Well, there I stood right in front of Tracy Stone Manning, and I said, one of my ranchers would like to meet with you face to face. And she said to me, she said, give me your email address and I'll reach out to you this evening. And I thought, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Somebody will reach out to me. But within just a few hours, Tracy Stone Manning had reached out to me and invited me and our ranchers, a few ranchers, back to Washington, D.C., along with our state BLM director and our public lands director from Utah. And so within a matter of a few days, we're sitting at the Department of Interior with Tracy Stone Manning, and she's listening to my ranchers and their concerns over public lands. Our ranchers are a big deal to us. For us to, and the word is out there, oh, you're going to lose AUMs, animal unit months, you're going to lose those. And if we lose those, we lose our ranchers, we lose our community.
Right.
It was important that the Bureau of Land Management hear from these people.
And I think that is such a great lesson in not assuming what people are going to say and what they're going to do and what their intentions are, to keep the dialogue going. And as we wrap up here this conversation, if and when you retire from county government and you're talking to a new county commissioner who's newly elected, what type of advice would you give after over 40 years in the private sector, being on a city council, being a mayor, being a county commissioner? What type of advice would you give a newly elected official?
Get involved. Be positive. Find ways to make good things happen. Nothing good just happens, Matt. If you want something good to happen, you have to make it happen. So you have to jump out, maybe put yourself out there a little bit. It's not easy. I can remember, Matt, when I first met you, I thought, oh my gosh, here's this guy. Oh, you scared me to death.
I was young back then.
Well, yeah, me too, right? But you got to be involved, and you got to be at the table. You really need to be. If you're not, you're on the menu.
That is a great way to end. Commissioner Jerry Taylor from Garfield County in Utah. It's just amazing to hear your positivity, your solution-oriented, and also the complexity of what a county commissioner in a county of 5,200 people is asked to do on behalf of their community with major national parks, national monuments, state parks, the complexity of that, without having hundreds of professional staff at the county, where you as an elected official are not only a policymaker, but asked to be a professional day-to-day managing the county. And so just thank you for your public service, and thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you on Talking Public Lands.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you. And thank NACo.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the County News Podcast and our series brought to you by the National Center for Public Lands Counties. For more information on this news center and NACo's work on public lands, visit naco.org.